Welcome to the Pain-Free Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Dana Jones. I am a certified personal trainer, and I'm here to help you achieve your fitness goals without pain. In each episode, I'll share tips and strategies that will help you stay safe and pain-free while you're working out. I'll also interview experts in the field of fitness and pain management. So if you're ready to learn how to stay active and pain-free, then subscribe to the Pain-Free Athlete Podcast today. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Pain-Free Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Dana Jones, and today I am joined by Nida Tansinsin, a physical therapist and chronic pain coach with over 25 years of experience helping athletes and patients rebuild confidence and movement. Nida started her career as an athletic trainer at Indiana University Bloomington, later earned her PT degree from Sacramento State, and she's worked across all levels of sports medicine and now brings a neuroplastic mind-body approach to her work. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate your time.
This is going to be fun. I'm excited about this.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I love that you started off as an athletic trainer because it seems like all good coaches do.
That's right.
As someone who also started off as an athletic trainer.
There you go.
Because you get to see a bunch of different stuff, and it really gives you, I don't know, like a crazy amount of experience for sure. How did you get into athletic training, and then how did that lead you to where you are now?
Yeah, it's a great question. I basically was the athlete in the training room all the time. I was always spraining my ankles. I played basketball, I swam, and the swimming injury I had was, now looking back, was shoulder pain. It was totally neuroplastic because I hated swimming by the time. I was like a senior in high school and really wanted to focus on basketball. And so I got into that, and I really wanted to be a physical therapist, but I was worried I couldn't get the grades for it. I ended up going into athletic training because I knew that was a good base. And so once I got into athletic training, then you kind of realize as an athletic trainer, you're the first person there and the last one to leave, and probably the least paid out of everyone. And
Yes.
so I decided, my sister is a physical therapist, and she encouraged me, just do it. You can take the classes. And I went to Sacramento State University as a graduate assistant for athletic training, and they luckily had a PT program. So then I just started taking the classes and jumped into the PT world. And kind of coming right out of college, I kind of had my dream job. It was working with Biancani, who was the strength and conditioning coach for the Sacramento Kings and Monarchs and was kind of the big strength and conditioning coach in Sacramento area. And I just started working with them for a couple years, got into that. And so I really saw all different levels, from high school to professional to college level of athletes, and really had a good time doing it because I got to work with strength coaches as well. And unfortunately, I didn't have any of this information back then. Number one, because we didn't really have the research and science to support it, because that's, again, 20 plus years ago. And so I just really wish I had all this knowledge back then, because, man, it's a whole nother level of training and and being less afraid to train harder and things like that. So, yeah.
It's kind of cool because on the East Coast, we did have the information. Because I remember, and I'm sure you've seen the 2020 interview with John
Yes.
Stossel.
Yeah.
And I remember watching that and thinking, wow, this is
Ah,
really cool, but did not have any point of reference to actually apply it. Because at that time, I was probably just starting college and I was an athletic trainer. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And that was it. And I just kind of let it go. As an athlete, sometimes you just let things don't stick because you're in it.
mm-hmm.
And I think that does it. I don't know if we know as an athlete when things are neuroplastic or when they're past injuries or whatever it may be. And so what patterns do you see with athletes, especially in the training? Like now, if you can go back and do case studies, what do you
Yeah.
see in terms of what athletes were having in terms of injuries or whatever they thought they were, as opposed to now? Like if you were to now look back.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, if there's this, for me, it was structural injury, sprained my ankle, swollen, blue. There's that one moment where you feel like you had the injury. But again, we're looking at tissue healing time. So in general, 3 months we give for tissue healing times, ligaments, tendons, or bones. And after that amount of healing time, and you're still having symptoms after that, then we're really well, I'm always looking at neuroplastics, symptoms because they're always involved. But then we're really looking at that as like the root cause of the problem. So, or if the symptom gets better and then you go back and you maybe do a little bit and then it triggers it again and it triggers it at like a high level that's not consistent with like maybe how much you increased your activity is a big key to kind of really, and then obviously just asking patients. I mean, I think that's the number one question that Western medicine misses with patients, whether they're athletes or, just coming in the clinic for, an annual checkup is, well, what's going on with you? How's school? Is it finals week? Like, do you miss your family? A freshman, it's hard to leave your family. So it's always also asking about not obviously the easy question is what happened. And then if they kind of have to like, well, I think it was something that maybe when I did that one deadlift, I kind of felt something or other. Start as an athlete making up stories in your head and trying to make sense of them. But then as you start connecting them to the other things that are happening in life and sleep and all those things, you can start to see a pattern there. So it's kind of like length of time that you've been having the pain. And if it kind of again keeps reoccurring over and over again with an activity that maybe doesn't equate to how much pain you're having is kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, that makes sense, and I know because especially as a college athlete, there are times that I was scared, but because you had to perform, you couldn't really say that you were scared. And a little bit, right? Like, "Oh, I'm a little nervous," whatever
Yep.
kinda thing, but you never really were able, like, I felt like I never had the ability to express, and I can't even imagine, like, what happens at the professional level
Yep.
and how you're able to kind of process nervousness of being in the finals for the first time or going to this championship or performing in front of X amount of people where before you're only playing for like a couple thousand, all of a sudden you're playing in front of 30,000
Yeah.
and,
Yeah, and
those
that's a
kinds of
good point is
pressures.
just looking at, like, what is coming up, like, literally, like, what event is coming up, and I know, you interviewed Charlie Merrill, and, he talked about that, like, when people taper off or, they get nervous that they're tapering off too much or whatnot, but really looking at, like, what event is coming up, what pressure are you putting on yourself? I had a kid that sprained his ankle that played basketball, and he came to me, like, almost a year later after just a regular sprain, and that's what I had all the time as a kid growing up, and he just said, "Well, the doctor said this could take more months and it's not getting better. And I took time off and, it's still not getting better." And that's something in my professional opinion probably should have been like maybe a month, maybe 6 weeks. And so him and I just started talking about, and the interesting thing about kids is they don't have as much of a stigma as I think, people from our generation have about mental health. And
Mhm.
they have like a sports psychology or psychologist at his high school. So it made sense to him. And he's like, oh yeah, the recruiters were at that game when I hurt myself. And, I'm trying to get a college scholarship. And that's been, pretty challenging for him. That was it. Like that was what the pain was stemming from was, yes, you sprained your ankle. And with the way he described it, it wasn't the ankle sprains that are really severe, like the ones where, your ankle is blown up and it's purple and blue. It was kind of just one of those probably grade 1, grade 2 ankle sprains that shouldn't have taken very long. But the fear and the worry and the concern about it and the pressure of it was what the brain was sensing as the perceived danger of threat, thus chronically keeping his ankle, in this state of fight or flight. So we really just worked on one of the things I really like to do initially is just have a patient move their ankle like up and down, side to side. And when you have them do it, you'll just see the non-painful side. If you just have them do like ankle dorsiflexion, plantar flexion, they're just like, yeah, this is dumb. Why am I doing this? And then when they go to their painful side, they're doing it either like slower or more guarded and it just looks a little less coordinated. And that's mostly the overprotection that the brain has learned is it hasn't learned how to be relaxed. And you can do that really with any movement with any patient. A shoulder pain problem is just have them. I always use a term like move your shoulder, just like light, loose, and easy. What does that mean to you? And you'll just notice a difference of usually the speed, obviously the quality of the movement is they don't know how to move it with lightness and ease anymore. There's just there's a conscious protection of it, but there's really this huge subconscious amount of protection that the clients learned over the year for him particularly. And then they come back the next session like a week or two later and that speed has kind of come back already. And that gives you're showing them and giving them the confidence that it's just like you just got to rewire it, buddy. You got to it's learn this pattern of protection. And it's super fascinating to see how quickly they can get better. Because after that, I mean, he was back to playing basketball, within a month, and he was back to normal. And all he needed was just like a pep talk, and you're okay, your body is safe, and life is stressful, and gave him different kind of options on how to deal with that, the other things that he was dealing with.
So let me ask you a question. What is the difference between pain and tightness? Because I know when I was first
Good question.
recovering, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
And because any movement, whatever, felt scary.
Yeah.
So how would you explain that to somebody coming
And
to you?
this is something I really only learned within the last, I'm going to say probably 3 years of even knowing the neuroscience, taking Charlie's course 7 years ago. I didn't quite totally get it, but it's understanding that things like pain, and again, we're thinking about chronically pain, if people tell me they're tight or they're achy, but then I go in and I stretch the person or they're stretching and they have like totally normal range of motion, that extra that sensation of tightness is like the nervous system in the brain producing that sensation as kind of like this overprotective, like it's the guarding, it's that hyper alertness and awareness, the protection of it. So tightness is a sensation in the body, and if the brain interprets that as dangerous, then also that could be pain, but it's just a sensation. So I tell people all the time is you can feel tight and look totally normal,
Mm.
and I see that all the time. And it, it's so fascinating to see people just saying those things like, "Oh, I feel really tight or feel really achy." And then you see their movement and you're like, "No, you're not tight." But it's a real sensation, and that's just another way for your brain to express. It's kind of like how you can feel anxiety. Tension's another one. Tightness is another one. So yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah, well, I was curious about it because I remember I don't one of the things that I read, and they were talking about how when people are anesthetized, right, and they have to move you in the operating room from one thing to another, they'll use like a blanket to move you because of the fact that if they grab you by your limbs, they can dislocate you
Because you're like,
because you're like jello.
yeah, yeah,
And I'm like, how are we like, so we are like jello at a point, but once that brain wakes up, boy, it's like, and I find it interesting that it chooses areas that, it's like, oh yeah, I gotta be tight in that hamstring or I gotta be tight in that calf or whatever it may be.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Obviously, like we said, it's just whatever's going to get whoever's attention. Right.
Yeah,
So
it's sometimes, it's like when you've done this kind of mind body neuroplastic work for so long is some people kind of like to interpret, an injury, if you're having shoulder pain, you just feel like you have too much on your shoulder kind of thing, or it's kind of making more meaning. If you have neck pain, does that mean your voice isn't being heard? Which I never would have believed in. Like, whatever before I did this work, but then I ask people and there's a lot of times this correlation of, yeah, totally, like my voice isn't being heard or things like that. And you don't have to make meaning of it, but it's kind of interesting to do that if
yeah,
you've done
right.
that
What is
kind of
it?
work.
I'm carrying the world on my back.
Absolutely. Yeah, for
Literally,
sure.
you're a
For
pain in
sure.
my ass.
Yeah, I have totally had that. That is hilarious because I had a woman who literally said that. It was her husband, and she was just like, and it was pure form of syndrome, back pain, and she's like, "My husband's been a pain in the ass," and we just chuckled about it, but it literally was like the area where she was having her symptoms. Yeah, so
And then, so I think at this point now, I feel like you and Charlie, you're more like you're physical therapist, but you're more therapist at this point because of the fact that you are catching people in the very beginning of whatever they've gone to the doctor, they've gotten their diagnosis, and now it's time to kind of get back on the road to recovery. So you're that first line of
yes,
caring human that we encounter. And so you do hear a lot of stuff because of the fact that I'm spending more time with you. It's not my 12 minutes or whatever,
for sure.
and I think that you guys get good information because of the fact that we're pretty vulnerable when we're coming to see you.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the difference that I've learned, and there's kind of a love-hate relationship working at Kaiser, is at Kaiser, you see everything. You see the person that is going to their primary care physician for their annual checkup, and they've just had, like, random ankle pain for the last 6 months. Or the last guy I saw, he had, just neck stiffness for the last 6 months. His wife had passed away, that year as well. And then you'll see someone that's like, they sprained their ankle, 2 weeks ago, then you can see a stroke. So you see so many different levels. And that's the thing that really working at Kaiser, and Dr. Kennedy will tell you the same thing, is we get to see their whole entire history. I mean, from some people like decades ago. And if you see like tinnitus, anxiety, elbow tendonitis, carpal tunnel, neck pain, all these chronic things dialing up. It's almost too easy sometimes. Not that I always tell people you don't have to have a diagnosis of like depression or anxiety. Neuroplastic pain is just the human experience. It's just part of our body. Like I get neuroplastic pain. Before I hopped on here, my shoulder was bothering me. And I've had like the last probably 6 weeks, I've been having this shoulder thing. And it's because I'm trying to do this work. And I told myself I'm going to get my name out there in 2026. I'm going to promote myself. And there's a bit of nervousness about that. And it really feels structural. There's like a little grinding, there's tension in there. When I wake up in the morning, I'm kind of doing this thing. And if I didn't know this work before, I would totally have thought it was some sort of like, labral rotator cuff thing going on. But as I just start moving it and doing some of my breathing things, it just kind of goes away. And then right before I logged in, I could kind of feel it. But I use that as a message of Nita, you're nervous. That's just what the brain's trying to tell you, but you're okay. And I just kind of allow it to be there. And when you start to get that power, it's pretty amazing how good your body can be. Just taking away the fear and understanding that pain is real, but it's not dangerous.
Right.
Yeah.
I think when I first started, it felt like, because everything felt so raw and so out there. So when I first started doing this work, it was like, you're not going to die. And
Yeah.
I know that sounds ridiculous, but I think I was so heightened all the
Yeah.
time that anytime I felt a twinge, I was like, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
And migraines are weird because there is the unknown. A lot of times you're like, oh, it could probably a brain tumor or something like that.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
wasn't any of those things. And I freaking knew that because I had all the scans and everything, but I still felt like I was going to die.
Yeah.
And, slowly then it moved over to you're safe. And then it was like, I love you and we're going to be okay.
Right.
But
Right.
it had to be like very dramatic in the beginning just
Yeah.
to kind of
Yeah.
like snap me out of it.
Now I have a question for you. So when you started having the migraines, because I hear this a lot from patients, did you start knowing things were gonna hurt, or you knew you were gonna pay for it, or you knew that was gonna cause a migraine? Like those kind of
Oh, hell yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And that was the hardest thing. So I was 8 years old when I started getting migraines and I was playing basketball and I sucked. But I wanted to do it because I wanted my dad to love me because he
God.
was a busy dude and he was never around and I knew he liked basketball, so I wanted to play basketball and I don't have the skill for it. It's just
Right.
not my jam. But I put so much pressure on myself to do it. And then because there was no girls team, I
Mm,
was playing with a bunch of boys, and so then if I felt any kind of the only acceptable emotion on sports field is anger.
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Anger or exuberation, right? Like, "We won, yeah," or "Damn," but anything else, like, if you're upset about something, "No, dude, you're not upset. Let's go. We gotta play," that kinda thing.
For
And
sure.
so I learned at a very early age to stuff,
Yeah.
and it just continued on, and then by the time I got close to college, I got into a couple of car accidents, so then that became the blame, that I had done something
Mm,
structural
yeah.
with myself.
Yeah.
And so then with the accident, that's when the fear came. If
Right.
I do shoulder presses, it's gonna give me a migraine. If I do too many push-ups, it's going to make me have a migraine. And I started creating all these associations that just put me in this, like, pit,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? And it's
Yeah.
amazing now that I've done the work or still work in progress, but I can see how things progressed, how it went from a little thing and then it just kept intensifying and intensifying and to the point where, it wasn't until about 6 years ago where it finally like kind of blew. But that's 40 something years of really fine tuning that fear.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
What was
that
the
was
thing that
so
brought you the safety eventually?
huh?
What was the thing that eventually brought you the safety?
Well, using the Curable app.
Nice.
And so when I was in a place because we talk about this, right? Is that you don't have the ability sometimes when you're panicking to not panic,
Yeah.
right? So the one thing I was like, what is the one default thing that I can do right now that doesn't require me to think or whatever? And it was the freaking app because I could just hit the app,
Yep. Yep.
say I'm feeling pain right now. It makes you do a little breathing in and out kind of thing. And then you get to choose, like, what do you wanna do? And they gave you different meditations, and one of them was a panic buster, which was by I can't remember his name now. He's the one who does the DARE technique
Mhm.
for
Mhm.
anxiety. and it was about tightening and loosening your body as you go through. That started it wouldn't break it, but
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
lessened it
Yeah.
because I would have a time that I would wake up every morning. It was like 4:20, 4:22. I'd wake up and then I go, "Oh shit, my head hurts. This is gonna ruin my day. And I'm supposed to see Nita today, or I'm supposed to go,
Right. Yeah.
wherever. I'm supposed to meet her for lunch, or I'm supposed to perform this thing, or I got a client, I got this, or whatever." And I would start laundry listing all the reasons why I was gonna die
For sure.
because I had all these things and you were gonna be disappointed in me and you would never be friends with me ever again because I canceled our lunch,
Yeah.
so it just became this like horrible spiral. And so that would stop it,
Hmm.
and then I may cancel lunch with you but then be like, "This is okay. This is what you need to do right now."
Yeah.
And she cares about you. She'll be around and you can call her and have lunch with her next week or that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah, and I think a lot of times patients don't even realize they went through that 10 list thing that you just did. 'Cause it happens so subconsciously that you just go down that rabbit hole of like all the bad things that are going to happen. And then your alarm system's just like, haha, we've got Dana again. We've got this migraine. And so it's as a coach or a PT or, whatever role you're playing, is to make the patient stop and think when they have the symptom come on, like, well, what are your thoughts? Because they don't always know. And then when they say it out loud, they're like, oh yeah, I totally, didn't have compassion. I totally, the Howard Schubiner or whatever, 6 F's of pain. I think it's like up to 7 or 8 now, but the fear of it, the focus of the pain, trying to fight, fix, or figure out the pain. If that's your first response to pain or whatever neuroplastic symptom it is, boom, that's just going to dial it up. So it's just recognizing in that moment, just stop and pause. And that's what you're learning to do and recognizing where your thoughts are. I tell people you have to try not to beat yourself up for being that way because ultimately your anger and your perfectionism or the hardworking you is also what made you the successful person that you are today. It made you go to college and get a scholarship and play softball. So we can't poo poo the things that it helped us with.
Right.
Now I tell people at some point your brain is like, okay, girl, that is enough. You've done too much. You're taking care of all the kids. You're going to work. You're doing all these things. Let's focus on me, right? Let's focus on how to make myself finally feel regulated or safe in my body. Now it's time. So, because people always ask, I've always had stress. And I'm like, that doesn't mean it's good. My life has always been stressful. I'm like, okay, yeah. And that's
Yeah.
why you're here to see
Well,
me.
especially when you're in that professional perfectionist manner, a lot of athletes are, right? Because
Absolutely.
most
Yep.
of what we have to do is repetition.
Hmm.
Right? Is my elbow in the right spot when I'm taking my shot? Am I batting properly? Is my foot in the right spot? And we do it over and over and over again so that professionalistic idea gets drilled into your brain. And I don't know if we ever know to take a breath. And that was what I was finding was that I would have the reaction and then boom, or I would have the sensation and then the reaction, and there was not any space.
Yeah. Yeah.
And taking that time to either breathe or do the progressive tensioning releasing,
Relaxation.
that
Yeah.
actually created a little space. And then, like, the calm Dana was able to come through and go, "Dude, you're not gonna die."
Yeah. Yeah.
But I couldn't hear like, in that it's kinda like,
The
I don't
panic
know.
button mode. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I would almost liken our responses to neuroplastic pain for people that are in it deep as a panic attack,
Absolutely. For
right?
sure.
You cannot
Yep. Yep.
hear
Yep.
any, like, normal conversation. You can't hear that it's going to be okay. You can't hear anything because you're like, "My elbow hurts," and,
Yeah. Yeah. And that's actually how I kind of again another way that I got into this work was I think I was having a panic attack after my fertility experience. The test was negative. I was devastated. And I just remember sitting there doing an eval and just feeling I just described it as like this red brush of heat just jump all over my body and I couldn't hear anything the patient was saying. I was just staring out the window and I was thinking to myself, what is happening? This is not good. And that's again how I got into the work was and I started like, listening to podcasts, doing self-help books, going to therapy and all those things. But those panic attacks absolutely is the body going into this, fight or flight, fawn response and just getting stuck there. And I would say the thing that I feel patients or even clinicians can teach wrong, I guess that's the right word, is using whatever strategy it is, the somatic tracking, the breathing exercise, or just going out and going for a walk, is before you even do that, number one is if you believe it's neuroplastic, which is, we always talk about the speed of recovery is often how correlates with how much you believe that you're not broken or that your body really is safe. Is really believing that you're safe. And sometimes safe can be triggering for people, for a lot of
Mhm.
because they never had a childhood that felt safe, or they're currently not in a safe situation. So whatever word connects to them, I'm okay, right? If you can say I'm safe, I'm safe. Just starting there and not trying to get rid of the symptom right away. If you're in the panic attack, like the higher level of the symptom, then yes, you can do whatever you need to do to just get out of it, if it's the panic button or not. But recognize that you're safe. But then just check in and have a conversation, whether it's 0.2 seconds of, hey, what are you trying to tell me? Okay, you're thinking about your dad that passed away. My dad passed away a couple years ago. And sometimes I can feel that little like twinge of the neck, and again, it's just like a little message. And you don't always have to figure it out, but just have a quick conversation with yourself, like, "Hey, what are you trying to tell me?" And then use the technique to kind of regulate yourself in the way that you could. Because I think if you skip that short step, which could be like literally a second or two, is that you're showing your brain you're fearful of it and you're wanting to get rid of it right away. The more you can kind of allow that symptom to kind of be there, say hi to it, again, a 1 or 2 second conversation with it, then you're just repeatedly showing the brain, hey, okay, so that symptom, she's not that scared of it anymore because she keeps talking to it, right? So that is one of the techniques is don't try to get rid of it so fast, so quickly again, unless it's that really high level, you can do that. But what you're learning to do through this process of neuroplastic medicine and this mind body stuff is really learning to have body dialogue is what, Beck and the
Mhm.
team came up with, is just having this conversation with the little voice in you that maybe has never been heard. And once you can start doing that and having this new lens, it's just like a game changer for you.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think we spend a lot of time ignoring that little voice
Mhm.
because we have to continue forward,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I have to do the things, and unfortunately, there's some added pressure with social media because of the fact, especially for me as a fitness trainer, I'm seeing all these trainers doing all these things, and I'm like, "I gotta do those things too."
Yeah.
And then something happens, and I'm like, "Hmm,
Right.
do you
Yeah, yeah,
really?"
yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, so getting us out of feeling threatened. So, breathing is always a good thing. I had a client once, and you and I kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, of like trying to bring this practice to people who may not be ready.
Yeah.
And I had a client, and she had a lot of stuff. And we were having a conversation. And I brought this up, and she immediately, like, no, you're shut down. Right. I was like, okay, so
I've
cool.
definitely had that feeling before for sure, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she was, like, getting a divorce, and her business was, like, crazy, and all these things were happening, but she did not wanna hear that this was whatever, and she wasn't gonna do any stupid breathing or anything like that, and I said, but I had noticed because a lot of times I'll videotape my clients as they're doing things so that they have it on their phone, so then when they go home, then they can see the exercise and do whatever they need to do, and I had grabbed her phone, and she had a Bible verse on her screensaver. And I said something about breathing, and she was like, "Nah." And I was all, "Well, do you pray?" And she's like, "Of course, every day." And I said, praying is meditation." And then it clicked. She
Mm,
got it. She was like, "Oh, okay. So it's not, I don't necessarily have to talk to me. I could be talking to God." And I was like,
yeah,
"Yeah, I mean,
that's
whatever
true.
it takes for you to express the fears, the doubts, whatever you have that you need to release from your body so that you can continue on with your day or do whatever you need to do, then that is okay. It doesn't have to be what I say it is."
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I've had patients say that, "Well, I don't have pain when I pray." I'm like, "Keep praying, girl." Like, you just keep doing it. But explain to them what's happening, that you're listening to your voice, you're giving your body a sense of safety by talking to God or the universe or whoever you wanna be talking to, and that turns down your alarm system. Like, it's a real strategy, whether you call it prayer or meditation, that helps bring your body this sense of like, "Okay, I'm cool."
Yeah. We all need a hug.
For sure. Yeah.
Whatever it is, right? We just need to know that we're going to be okay, and that, and I think that's what those kinds of practice, like especially the breathing and stuff like that. Those
Yeah,
are
yeah.
those are just like universal hugs,
Yeah,
right?
and that's the whole, like, hand on the heart is it triggers the same part of the brain as if someone was to give you a hug, and that's why I don't always have people do that, but, there's some good I feel like people don't even it helps them just connect in a way that they don't realize, like, "Oh, yeah. Okay, that does feel different." And I just tell people, like, just feel your hand on your chest and just notice that sensation on there. I don't define it for them. I don't say, like, you should feel calmer. It's just like, what do you notice? And there's something, again, happen up in the noggin that's turning down that volume knob. So, yeah,
That's great.
fascinating stuff.
How do you feel? Because in our area, no pain, no gain is a big
Boy.
one. Everybody
Yeah,
loves that one. And we have this thing that athletes kind of create this identity of like, we have to suck it up and we got to push through. And how do you possibly help them reframe it so
for
that
sure. For
they
sure.
don't do stupid shit to
Yeah,
themselves?
and this goes back again to when I was working with professional, like, NBA players, WNBA players, and Major League Baseball players. Is in hindsight, I remember this guy. He was the hardest worker, and he had an ACL tear. And I was working with him for a really long time, and he was always super intense, always tried really hard. And then there was this other guy that had a similar surgery, and he was just like the goofball, just like kind of half-assed doing therapy, and he would kind of annoy me, but he was kind of funny. But he just came in with this like, such a laid back, presence, while, this guy was just working his butt off and being very perfectionistic and very intense. And and he never really got past his ACL. There was
Mm,
always something there that was kind of nagging him. And I remember him having kind of a rougher childhood, and football was his way out. And he ended up playing, I think, in the I don't know if it was the CFL or one of those leagues, but he didn't, for me at least, again. And it was my first 2 years of being a physical therapist, so I kind of really didn't know what I was doing. But that's what really made me, in hindsight, after using this work the last 7 years, being like, those people that are super intense are the ones that their nervous systems are all up here because they're putting so much pressure on themselves. So you can do the push through pain when you're not in chronic pain. Yeah, I mean, sure, like just go for it and do it. But when you're in pain, the way out of it isn't by pushing through it. It's also not, if it hurts, don't do it. It's somewhere right in the middle. So the saying I always use is the sore but safe, tap or nudge into the pain, say hi to the pain. And the reason is if you want to explain it to an athlete from a perspective of the science behind it, and Lorimer Mosley and David Butler have the Explain Pain book, and it has a great graphic of the Twin Peaks model. So what I explain to people is after injury, and this could be like a physical injury, but again, if it's past 3 months, we're looking more specifically at neuroplastic. If it's past 3 months and the pain is still there, that when we have an injury is there's a new protect by pain line. So it kind of starts here at the bottom. This is your normal protect by pain line. And after an injury, and I tell people it could be a physical injury or an emotional injury. It could just be life. Is that alarm system for pain is going off down here. And if you stop doing activity, then your tissue tolerance line drops more, right? So you're more deconditioned, maybe your nerves aren't gliding as well, muscle tension. But then when your pain alarm comes on, it's way before tissue damage. So in order to get rid of pain when you're in pain, you kind of just nudge up against that line. And as you nudge up against that line, that turns the alarm system down. And then that helps obviously again decrease the pain. So again, when you're going through and you're working out and you're feeling really good, you're not having any pain, the push through pain model works. But when you're in pain, even though it's annoying, I was talking to this patient, and she wasn't an athlete, but I said, if you have to start at 1 minute a day and you're walking, let it be 1 minute a day. As long as it stays sore but safe as you're doing the activity,
mhm.
you're still nudging up against that line. But if the activity is getting worse and worse and worse as you're doing it, and even if it is neuroplastic, just respect it. Just be like, okay, that's where my nervous system and brain are starting to whatever have fear. So it's understanding when you have the pain is that it's real, but it's not dangerous. But you kind of just have to respect it. And then the next day, see how you feel. If you feel good, you can go a little bit more. And just kind of based on that general model is if you have a flare up more than 24 to 48 hours, and that's a higher level of pain, I tell people you kind of probably just overdid it from a physical standpoint. Just like when you didn't have pain and you worked out too much and then you were really sore the next day. That's going to be a normal response. That delayed onset muscle soreness that can last for a day or two. That's just a body's normal response when you give it, trauma or workout. But if it's lasting for weeks or months after that, that doesn't make sense for it to be, equating to how much pain that you're having. So that is such a key, is really understanding that if you do have a flare up afterwards. So say your workout went great and you're like, Nita's awesome, she's amazing, and Dana's awesome, they know what they're doing. And then a day or two later, it's like, bam, there's the pain. As a clinician, you've already explained to them that a flare up is kind of right here. It doesn't mean you damage a tissue, but again, it's your nervous system and brain saying, hey, whatever you did was too much, or hey, that finals that you have coming up, or that big meeting with the boss, that was really scary. It's the perception of danger that can produce that pain. So if you have a flare up, maybe figure out why. Was it that you overdid it? Maybe physically willingness, take a day or two off. Or was it that the truck that you bought that, or did you buy it? I don't know. I heard the Charlie Muir, right? So stressors there. And then acknowledging what maybe, or maybe you didn't sleep well, and figure out what maybe caused the flare up and then kind of just adjust as needed. And this is where, again, you're learning to communicate with your body little by little. And that's ultimately, again, what the goal is to find where your nervous system and brain feels safe. So again, the push through model can work when you're not in pain. The push through model when you're in pain will not help desensitize the pain response.
Yeah, you brought up that last part was totally me,
Yeah,
because I would be fine when I was doing the exercise, but then and there was always stuff that let's put it this way. I wasn't fine. I thought I was fine when I was doing the exercise, but there was a lot of fear in the exercise.
absolutely.
And so imagine if you're super tight and then you're trying to do, chest presses or some kind of exercise that's added pressure to those muscles. So of course you're going to have a higher rate of response of soreness or whatever, as opposed to you just chilling and enjoying it and having fun with your friend or whatever.
Great
There was
point. Yeah, yeah.
always a meaning to the workout. It was never just a workout, and I think that's what allowed me to kinda stay in that heightened state, because I was always fearful. So I was
Yes.
working out fearful, if
Yeah.
you do
Yeah,
understand
and
what I'm saying.
that's even what I tell people is if you're doing the workout and you're kinda, again, the subconscious, I call it the bullying voice, is going, "Be careful. Are you sure you're not gonna pay for that tomorrow? What about
Mhm.
the next day? What do you have going on? Do you have to take your kids to school? You better be careful." Like, those thoughts may actively be going through there, again, from this subconscious level. And I always tell people is understanding the way that pain works is if we wanted to make it pretty black and white, is it's if the brain perceives, danger over safety. Those messages are total danger messages. And again, that can be what's fueling it. Now, let's just say again that you really didn't even have those thoughts, but you still had the flare. It's still the same thing, is identifying that it's neuroplastic. Because again, if it was more, of the structural thing, it should also, why wouldn't it be happening while you're doing it? But if the pain is happening, a day or two after, that is your nervous system and brain being like, no, 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 this was way too much. And then again, the key is not believing that you're broken and understanding that what you did do, it wasn't too much for your tissue. It was too much for your brain and your
Mhm.
nervous system. And that's the key, is being like, okay, I can handle that. I just, kind of bullied my brain a little bit. And again, being able to use that strategy is super helpful anytime you're trying to get out of pain. The other huge thing I tell patients is the energy behind how you do all of this work, meditation, breathing, right? I think we talked about this before, is it has to be done, well, not has to, but it's more helpful if it's done with an energy of lightness, of ease, of curiosity. So, for example, a meditator that's like, Dana told me I need to like breathe and meditate, like, "Oh, why isn't this working? It's supposed to make things go away." Like, obviously, that's not gonna work. The same thing for working out, like, "Oh, they told me to do this exercise, and I'm gonna do it really hard." That's, again, the push through pain, bullying brain, all of that. So when you're doing the exercises, it's kind of the light, loose, and easy. If you can find something that's more joyful, obviously that can help, right? And understanding if you're doing it and you're still having pain while you're doing it, that's okay. But don't push through it. Don't avoid it. Just nudge into it a little bit and show your brain that it's a safe activity.
That's great. So 2026 is coming up. You got some stuff on the, because I love you and I know we could talk forever. So why don't you tell us, like, what you got going on, how people can find you, how are you
Sure.
branching out, all those things?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking. Yeah, I mean, being a therapist for this long and just working for the hospital systems and just constantly going through is you never think about, really trying to do this work on your own. And it can feel kind of scary. So I've been working with Dr. Kennedy, who's more kind of long haul, long haul COVID and chronic fatigue syndrome, but it's all under this same umbrella. And pretty much most people that have those symptoms also have chronic pain. So I've been working with Dr. Kennedy. So her website is resilience healthcare.com, and I'll be on there. And then my hope is within 2026, I'm throwing it out in the universe so I can be more responsible for it, is I'm going to start kind of posting on Instagram and TikTok. And I've never done TikTok in my life. I feel so old saying that. And then, hopefully putting some stuff on YouTube of kind of more like how to exercises if you have a specific joint that hurts, like if it's a shoulder or neck pain, more kind of specific exercise that give people more safety while doing it. Because in general, and I hate to say it as a physical therapist, kind of the best exercise is what brings you joy, right? Like the one that, brings you joy, but also obviously doesn't make your symptom flare up really big, but is doing the things that you like. If you like to dance, if you like to throw the ball around, if you like to shoot some hoops, using these strategies of, again, if you're doing it, you have a little pain, that's okay, sore but safe. But also if you really want specific neck exercise, shoulder exercises that I can give that, there are those there, but it's more of because that brings you more safety. Is that any better than you dancing and moving around and having a joyous walk, in the woods? Probably not, but it can make you feel safer in a way where I'm giving you a specific movement for that specific joint and guiding you through that. And I do think there's a huge benefit to that, from the PT lens, but also you don't have to have me. Just start listening to Dana too.
Awesome.
So I'll be
Well,
doing
thank you
that
so
and then
much.
just getting more, just more exposure through different podcasts and things like that. So resilience
Well,
healthcare is
I'm
cool.
looking forward to hearing more what you got going on, and because especially in the athletic realm, there's not a lot of us out here, and we
Oh, no.
all want to be active until we're done on this
Yeah.
plane. So if you can help us do it and be safe and enjoy it while we're doing it, that's the ultimate goal.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you, Dana. We'll keep in touch.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Take care.